Hello, everyone. My name is John Jackson, also known as Attorney Somm. As many of you may know, Clos Mogador is one of the top wineries in Priorat. Rene Barbier Jr. has been the winemaker there for a number of years. Hi, Rene. How are you?
Fine. I am worried about that because I am not very good for that system, but it's okay. I am here.
No, it turned out great. You're here now. So thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's an honor to have you here.
For me also too.
Yeah.
It's an honor.
Great. We're going to start out by talking about kind of the resurgence of Priorat back in the 1990s,
yes,
and how that was kind of interconnected with the founding of Clos Mogador and your father's involvement and how he was instrumental in both of those developments.
Yes, I was very young. I was 18 years old when I just to help my father in 92. My father and a group of friends, crazy and hippie for guys, to start in this moment in the end of in the beginning of the 80s to plant in this region. The Prioriat was probably one of the poorest region in the area. Was very famous for wines, very big, a lot of alcohol. Normally, people buy that, like my grandfather and Torres and many factories buy for blend because it was a lot of alcohol and potential, and to blend the other places not so more or less structure. And that's was the way before these guys to start. And these guys has one idea very clear, to make the best we can do and the wine from the place. No, why the names at the beginning was Clos. Clos is a word, is a French word, very famous, like Clos in Burgundy. But in Catalan also is used, this word. And it's very interesting because it's one place. That's important because in Spain, in the 80s, was no one. Only probably Vega Sicilia and Jean Leon, and probably very, very few bottles of wine was only one place. It was very famous, the label, the marks, no, like a Torres, was very famous also the region, like Rioja, but the rest was only one place. No, not the place. Never was one single vineyard. This a single vineyard concept was in Spain was not normal before that group.
Yeah, and certainly if you're going back to the 1980s time period as well, there weren't very many wineries, and it was kind of a forgotten area.
Yes, no, this was a very difficult moment for that region. Was only imagine was I think so 700 hectares. In the beginning of last century was 6,000 hectares, and was less and less and less and less. It was 700 hectares of all vineyards, and the big part was for the cooperative, to the cooperative guys, viticultors, and to sell not in bottle. Only was one example, very nice. This is Scala was the only guy to put in bottle, but it's a really a moment quite difficult. And that was the revolution of these 5 guys in the 80s. He made this few production. Everybody, I remember Mogador, the first vintage was less than 5,000 bottles, 4,000 bottles like this. It's a very short production. But it was in so small production, these 5 guys to sell in different countries. No, one in the States, one in France. In my case, Clos Mogador, my father started to sell in France and Switzerland. But Alvaro and Daphne start to sell in the States in the beginning, this first vintage, 89. And this probably, this whole production altogether was like 20,000 bottles. But we made a lot of noise, a lot of, I don't know why, but it was a good success.
Yeah, and just so everyone understands, way back in the 1800s, Priorat was actually a thriving wine region. And when phylloxera hit in France, I understand that there was a lot of wine being provided by Priorat to France during that time period.
Yes, there's a very nice period. There's the gold period of the wine. Yes, wonderful, because the phylloxera come here like 20 or 30 years later, and the wine was in that moment was very easy to sell wine and alcohol. Alcohol is very important, made alcohol, because it has a lot of alcohol in the wines and the distillate, and was a really good moment. That was after we come this phylloxera, the revolution, industrial revolution, and also the war, the guerra. I don't know the name, but was that was No?
Right,
But
exactly.
the beginning of the last century was the best moment of Prioriat. Sure.
Yeah, yeah. And then there was a period of almost 100 years until your father, and you refer to the five guys. They're also known as, they're referred to as the five Clos.
Mm.
And your father was certainly instrumental in that, Rene Barbier Sr., wasn't he?
My father is like the ideologue. No, he has the vision of this idea of a great wine to make that idea. Also, my family, my grandfather and grandfather always was involved in the wine, but always in the business of negociation. You know, the word, no, buy wine and some grapes, but special wine and blend it and put the label Rene Barbier. But always was this idea, and my father it was the first guy to make the viticulture guy. No, we don't buy grapes and no wine. It's only one vineyard of one wine. And during 10 years, Mogador, we made only one wine, Clos Mogador, 89 to 99, only one wine, Clos Mogador. That's one vineyard, one wine. There's a different concept of the other generation of Barbier. It was always with a very big factories, but negociant.
Right. Yep. And the very first vintage of Clos Mogador then was it was actually a joint production, wasn't it, with some of the other wineries as well, and then it was bottled under different labels. But yeah, that was the first wine, wasn't it?
Yeah, because the idea was to make a cooperative because this is very short production. And why to make 5 wineries is stupid, no? For 5,000 bottles each. And we have the idea to have one place to make the wine, but everybody has his vineyard. Okay, but we made many mistakes, and some people. I remember I planted too much Cabernet cap in my vineyard, and the other made too much Merlot. And in the beginning, was not very good balance. The decision of the group was to blend because was better. This idea, the first idea, no? And it was this a funny thing because in the first vintage was the same wine but different labels, and everybody, it's not a problem because I sell in state or I sell in France, nobody know. And now it's funny because some people told me I prefer 89 Mogador. You prefer the label because the wine is the same, exactly the same.
Right.
Only the first vintage one.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then so beginning the next year, you bottled your own wine.
Yes. In the beginning, but we bottled in the 01, but in the same winery. And 92 is the first vintage to every winery, every guy has his winery. And I start to help my father in 92, to help in that moment. And I was 18 years old.
Okay, great. And what was the very first vintage in which you did an estate wine?
Am I?
An estate wine with all your own fruit rather than sourcing any fruit.
I understand the question. Sorry.
Yes. So what is the first year that you used only Clos Mogador fruit for the Clos Mogador?
No. Well, probably was 92.
92.
Because I remember 91 also was I have a big problem in Mogador. Because, you know, the hair, the stones, no? Like, I don't know, and we lose big part, no? And it was a group, and I remember I put a lot of Martinet, this is my wife, in Mogador to help the vintage. In 90s there's a big part Mogador, but some vineyards was blended. And 92 is the first vintage is totally different because everybody is separate. Was also a moment quite difficult, and everybody to has his winery and his analog and his. This is a really wine was totally different of Mogador, Martinet, Lovac, Dauphy, and Erasmus.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could explain a little bit about the climate in Priorat and some of the conditions that you have to deal with. It's not a real easy place to grow grapes.
No, and especially the last vintage is supposed to cry. But yes, normally it's a very dry area. It's very, the stone is called licorella. It's like a slakes, but very degraded, a lot of iron inside. And this is a typical soil in Prioriat. 95% of that. Some small parts is calcaire soils. But it's funny because these calcaire soils you find these soils in Scalari, in the village of Scalari. That is totally different soil. But the normal 95% of the soil is licorella, and it's a very dry and very hot. All the sun all day. It's very dark. It's very, very why the production is a low production and very concentrated wine. The wine always, the concentration in Prioriat is always concentration because few bunches for wine.
Yeah, and the yields are extremely low. Is that?
Yes, always.
Yeah.
That's the problem. The water and the material, organic material is very low also, and that's the problem. If you want to, I made now a rosé and also white. Always is big concentration. No? Big power. And the alcohol also is, is the only appellation I know have a minimum alcohol. If you want to minimum, but the minimum is 13.5. If less than 13.5 is no Prioriat. That's crazy. But when you're in Prioriat, you understand. No, it's okay. I understand. It's normally, especially for Garnacha is the biggest part of the Prioriat, and Garnacha produce a lot of alcohol. And it's very difficult to make less alcohol than 13.5 in Garnacha. Now, some grapes like Carignan, Picpoul, some grapes, I find some grapes is possible to have less alcohol. No, I don't know, in the future, probably this 13.5 minimum, I don't think so. I don't know, it's possible to change in the future, because if you made 100% Carignan in the first places, it's possible to have probably less than 13.5.
Okay.
But it's low.
Yeah. Is there a maximum?
It's the minimum.
Yeah, but there's no maximum. You can go 16, 17, as high as you want.
I find that my father is very crazy. It's like a rancio wine. The rancio is a typical wine from here. It's like a oloroso, like a cherry oloroso. It's very oxidative, but it's very, very low concentration. And that's wine. It's natural wine. It never put sugar and alcohol. And I find 29 natural. 29 natural. It's incredible. I find that in the house of the old guy, 29. It's incredible. Also a very old wine, but it's very normal to find the grapes potential of sugar of 18, 19. It's easy, very easy in Garnacha.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, Grenache gets very, very ripe. Yeah,
it's alcohol.
Yeah. Now, getting back to the 1992 time period, I know you mentioned that a lot of your wines now have improved dramatically compared to some of those first vintages. But even despite that, the wines were very well received and did very well. The region, Priorat region, was given DOQ status before long, isn't it? Or wasn't that right?
Yes.
It's the highest level in Spain, and it's at the same level as Rioja.
Yes. This is, I don't remember which vintage was it, 2000 and I don't remember the first vintage was DOQ. But it's because it's 100% in bottle. It's a moment that quite politically complicated because the Catalan created Catalonia, Deo Catalonia, and that's for us was in that moment was a difficult thing because you can't blend all the grapes of the other appellation, but Prioriat was not happy for this appellation, and was no problem. You are different. You are DOQ. No, it's not the same level. We are one step, and this is not the same idea, but sure, it's one very important thing is 100% is in bottle. And now we also in the last two vintage we have a new concept, also Vino De Vina, like Vin de Village or Vino de Finca, or many new things in the last 3 years.
Right, and the Vin de Finca, that was actually the first Spanish wine to be awarded that distinction was Clos Mogador. Is that correct?
I don't know if the first was, but yes, it's in 2005. The first, I think, no, John Leon. I think 4 or 5 we are together. And that is the obsession of my father to one place. Mm-hmm. But this Vino de Finca was like a Europe idea. And now we are a different one, Vino De Vina clasificada. This is the same idea, but of appellation of Prioriat. And that is a new for the 17th, the first vintage, okay, of this appellation. Is the same of Vino De Finca, but now is from the appellation that have that, okay? And now we are a lot of new Vino De Finca, but from some appellation. You see? That's right, the first vintage has, yes, yeah. Perfect. It's interesting. Not from Europe; it's from the appellation of DOQ. And I think it's very nice.
Yeah, but that's very impressive, though, because the region of Priorat then went from producing mostly bulk wines to receiving the highest recognition possible for a region within about 10 or 12 years.
Probably, no, sure is the average was the more expensive in Spain, probably. We
Yes.
are also very small. That's true. It's easier when you are small than you are very big. No? But it's very expensive to make the wine here. The grapes is very, very expensive.
Especially with the low yields and the other conditions that you have to deal with. So.
And it's like this and low yields. I think it's difficult.
Yeah. Why don't we shift gears a little bit and talk about some of your first your vineyard practices and then a little bit about winemaking after that. But starting with the vineyard practices, I know one thing that was very important to your father and to you as well is biodiversity in the vineyard. Could you talk a little bit about some of the things that you do to encourage biodiversity at Clos Mogador?
Yes, my father has always this idea of biodiversity. Okay. The first step he uses was biodynamic, ecologic. I don't know, is bio is the products bio products. But I think my brother Christian to start to now is the boss of the vineyard, and he started now 8 years ago. Yes, 9 years ago. No, 10 years ago in 2010. And he introduced many other concepts, and very interesting. But the idea of my father that's very interesting is not only vineyard, to blend olive, almonds, and vineyards. That's very nice, and plants with different plants in the not just in the middle, but just near this idea. But my brother introduced other concepts, and we try to make many things quite difficult in the region, like a plant cover. It is very difficult because it's a very dry area. We tried that 10 years. Now, last year was a big disaster because it was so dry. But the other idea is to make his products, the biofertilizants and tea of herbs and maceration and decoction of herbs. That's also the idea to buy the less as possible, to make the cycle. That is very nice. And this is and also the smaller machine as possible to not compact the soil. This is like a very small tractors or by hand. The mules also to introduce, and again the horses. That is all this. The job is my brother. It's wonderful.
Okay, great. And then you also you even sell some of the olive oil as well. Is that right?
A little bit. Yeah, in the middle of this vineyard has olive oil, and we produce always every year some bottle of olive oil. It's very nice olive oil in my region. I have Arbequina. It's a very small olive. It's called Arbequina. And then it's very concentrated, but very elegant. I like olive oil here. Yes.
Excellent. And it's my understanding that you're also mostly organic. Is that correct? In the vineyard?
Organic. That's the word, organic. We call it biological, but it's organical, yes. Okay. Yes, we are organic. Also in another projects. For now, I don't put in the label in Mogador because it's the first year I have back label, and now probably the idea of put in back label organic is a good idea. Probably in the future, we are in organic all the vineyards.
Have you obtained certification for organic?
But in the vineyard, yes, but I don't put in the label for now. Back because normally I don't have back label, but now I have back label because a new appellation I have back. Well, now I have, and now why not? Yes, sure. The beginning was quite difficult because I remember when I was young, the organic one was cheaper, very cheap, and that's the idea of organic, and it's quite difficult. But why not? I buy all organic for the food. And also I put in Venus, in Dido, I put organic certification. The problem, you are another label in States, and you have to pay another label. That's okay, but yes, we are organic. And not in the label Mogador for now, but I think we want to put in the future.
Okay, excellent. And I actually have a question here from a master of wine, Gus Zhu, who's one of the 300 masters of wine or so. He had a question about the growing season this year. He had heard that there are some mildew issues near Barcelona, and he was wondering if Priorat has experienced any problems with mildew this year.
In my first year in my life, I have now 20 harvests. In my first year, I know when I told you organic is difficult, for me was organic is much easier and it's cheaper. That vintage I lose a lot. Some vineyards like Amañetas, probably 90%. Nelin, the best places, more fresher, 100%. I don't know in the general, but more than 50 or 60% less.
Oh, wow. And that's because of mildew.
Because mildew is not my, I don't know what's happening. It's not the user. Normally it's dry. Have other problems like oidium. I understand that's the illness, but mildew is something new for us. No? I don't use copper, and that's tea or herb is okay, but was too much rain on every 2 days, and was we lost. We learned some things, which I hope, but yes, difficult. That's very difficult.
Okay.
Difficult
and was that
for the very nice for the herb, very nice for the plants, but not for the grapes. The grapes, I lost grapes.
Right. So, and that's the 2020 vintage?
Thank you.
2020, okay.
And 2019 was the hottest June, and I lost, special magnetas is very hot. A lot of plants was too hot, like 45 degrees, and was like it was also a big disaster. Like 2 years, one is too hot and it's too mildew, too bad vintage. But
oh wow, very extreme weather the last 2 years then.
Yes, this is very extreme, very extreme.
Yeah. Before last year, was it pretty consistent, or did you always have lots of variation?
Yeah, normally here is hot and hot. No, but and dry. But yes, but it's quite difficult also because we are 17 and 16 too dry both. No, and was 2 years too dry. Also, the 17 was a slow vintage. 18 was better, a little more water. With 18, like a brief was a good vintage and quite easy. But this, 14, 18, 2010, the 3 vintage easy. The other vintage was normally too hot and there's too much stress. The problem is the alcohol, no? Like now you taste the 17 was the years, my fermentation, longest fermentation, and the white was score 16 months to finish sugar. 16 months to finish sugar fermentation. It's like a champagne because it was so the alcohol, no, the stress of the plant, the nitrogen is very down. I didn't put nothing. That 17 for me was very difficult vintage to make it because the plant probably took stress also too much stress.
Yeah. Well, why don't we shift gears a little bit from your brother's area? And I understand your wife is also in charge of the viticulture at Venus La Universal. And let's shift gears and talk about what you'd like to do, and that's the winemaking process. So if you could maybe talk about some of your philosophy in terms of the making wine and the blending at Clos Mogador.
Yes. My wife is here after we want to stick together with Venus, but for Mogador is, I told you, is 10 years Mogador. And as we start 2 projects in 1999 and 2000, we start Magnetas, the Carignan, because in the beginning, my father believed to Grenache, but not really believed and plenty. And we plant Cabernet and Syrah. These are the 3 grapes, Grenache, Cabernet, Syrah. This is the beginning. After I remember in 99, I tasted wines, the new wines. And one of the wine of my wife, Simza Borrera, was created in 96. I tasted that in 98. I remember was, wow, what's that so nice? And was Carignan. And that's, wow, Carignan. I thought Carignan is bad grapes, no? And yes, and wow, okay. We made a mistake and we put Carignan in Mogador, 20%. And we create a new project. In the beginning, Magnetas was 60% Carignan. Now it's 100% Carignan. Because now we love in Carignan in this extremely hot place. I think it's very nice. But now Carignan is a very important. Now it's Grenache, Carignan, Syrah, a little bit Cabernet. No? Cabernet is here. For me, it's okay because Cabernet is part of the history of Mogador, but it's only in the first clos. No? In Martinet, in Mogador, I don't know, in Erasmus now, but the new people, young people don't use Cabernet. That's nice. But why not in Clos Mogador? Okay, I remember in the beginning it's 35, 40% Mogador, Cabernet. Now it's only maximum 10%, between 5 and 10. But I have Cabernet for 40 years old, 45 on plant, and it's wonderful in the south face, in the north face, and that's what I want to keep. And this is also in Mogador, okay? This Cabernet is a little more structured, but it's in Mogador, this small part. That's the idea is to make the one of the terroir. Not very important how much % 6% has blend. I don't make blended. All is good in the wine. If it has more Grenache, more Grenache. If it has more Syrah. It depends of the year. The years now with the mildew, I lost a lot of Carignan. Probably was 2020 was a lot of Grenache. It's the year. It's the year made the blend. Okay, it's the year.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's my understanding also.
Philosophy in winery, is the idea. My dream is don't put nothing at all. That's my dream. I start to make a natural wine that for me natural is nothing, and the problem is sulfur. No sulfur at all is very difficult. And I start to make that now many years, more than 15 years. Okay, it's always I have an experimental project, no? And Mogador is step by step. In Mogador, maximum is like a 30, 40 total. Normally I put only sulfur after the process, when it's finished, after malolactic. But I have always some part natural, but it's very difficult. After 15 years, it's very difficult to make wine in this idea. If your idea is natural wine is the first idea, is the more important for you. Okay, it's easier if you are the short maceration. Is easier if you are in the recipient quite clean, like inox or glass. Or it's easier. Many things. No? But I like the very long fermentation. I like the dirty material. I like the very, very long maceration, like the 40 days, 50 days. I like very old, long aging in winery. In that conditions, a natural wine, no sulfur at all. It's difficult. I hope in the future I can to make it. For now, I have always experimental process, and the minimum of sulfur is possible. And normally it's between 30 to 40, the bad vintage 50 total. That is my top stop and no more. And it's not very easy to control, especially the Brettanomyces. This is a big problem. The Brettanomyces for me is not a problem, but if you have too much Brettanomyces, it's only Brettanomyces. That's the balance. And that balance is very difficult to control that if you don't have tools. And one of the tools work very nice is the sulfur.
Yeah. And so Clos Mogador then is almost, by some definitions, then it's considered a natural wine then, because you use just a little bit of sulfur prior to bottling.
Yeah, that's a very confused. What's natural? No, for France people, sure, it's natural because many people make natural. For me, in Catalonia, we are very extreme guys, and natural is nothing and nothing. As many people made that, and for me, that's natural because it's so difficult. I know because I made it. I made 4 wines and natural. And that is really difficult. No, if you put one sulfur, that's much easier. No, and for me, Mogador is not natural because I put sometimes 1.5. The total is 30, but it's 1.5. No, sulfur. But it's because it's too difficult if you are a lot of alcohol, long maceration, long blah blah blah, all these steps. No. But sometimes I bottle always a pure natural Mogador. I have some vintage, great, not only natural in my cellar. I never sell it, but I have some good results. But I have very bad also too. Very bad. Yeah. Too much.
Yeah. Why don't we shift gears a little bit? Why don't we talk about Venus Universal before we shift gears and start tasting the Clos Mogador wines? What is Venus La Universal?
Venus. This is a project that started my wife and Sara. Let's see, I think it's the. Sara started in '99 to make this project just in the other appellation, Monstant. There's the biggest difference of the 2 appellations, the terroir. Okay, in Venus is have different wine, but one part is in granitic sandy soil. It's very nice, very fresh, and the other part is in calcare soils. No, we don't have licorella. Okay, and there's a big difference. And this granitic sandy soil is much fresher, and I always to find freshness in Venus Universal. This is one of the focus because I chose one place much fresher. No, it's like this white soil, and it's always fresher. No? This is very important.
We actually have, I understand this rosé here as well.
So, yes, I have also too. Yes, this is very nice. Very nice. Well, My wife and me, I never buy in the past rosé because of this very fruity, easy wines. Those not my dream. But the idea of this rosé so complex, so different, was
Hi, Sarah. How are you? Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Thank you. Nice.
Thanks for joining. Yeah, we just started drinking the Venus La Universal rosé.
Spain the rosé too.
Yeah.
No,
So, and Rene was telling us a little bit about his preferences. I know certainly my experience was the same as Rene's, in that a lot of the rosé that people drink in the summer in particular is just kind of like an afterthought. It's like a lemonade or something you drink outside, just if you want something to drink and you don't care what it is.
I respect
but this is a serious wine.
The idea is, I remember the first vintage, the first wine I tasted was a rosé from Rasteau. Rasteau is the hottest place in Rhône, or one of the hottest places. No? And I tasted one guy, is now a good friend, Jérôme Bressy, Goût de Motance, Rasteau, a rosé from 10 years old. And I tasted, wow, it's wonderful. And it's the hot area. If it's possible in Rasteau, it was Grenache, Sanso, I remember. Why not in Prioriat? And we try, and we start just in this project of Dido Rosé, Dido Solucio Rosa. We call this name of not Rosé. The idea is pink solution. Is a Dido pink solution.
And how many vintages now have you produced this rosé?
How many vintages?
Yes, I think it's 13 the first. 13?
Yeah, 13.
Okay.
Well,
so maybe...
we never started 11, then 12, but we never liked it enough, and we put in the red. So 13 was the first vintage that we have just taste and say, wow, this is what we want. This is different, and this has enough complexity and something different, So that was the first vintage.
Yeah. And is this a natural wine? Do you have any sulfur in this one?
A little bit, but because the idea was a very, very long aging. This is 18 months aging in a very, very old oak, like a 50 years old oak, foudre. The idea a little bit, Chateau Rayas has aging the Grenache in a very, very old oak, but we buy in, Mosel, like a dark, like a very, very old. And we put all the production here because it's like a big site. We put here and wait. And after, I think it's from some freaky sommeliers to understand that. But no, we made more and more and more. The people drink. I think it's not a normal rosé, but have a very big texture of rosé, for food, probably.
Yeah, I think it's a very special wine because people that loves the wine can love it perfectly because it's like amazing because it's different. It's not a rosé wine. You must understand it because it's closer to an aged white Mediterranean wine that the conception that we have about a rosé, but it has a special energy than people that is not habituated to drink special wines or different wines. Normally they love, but it's not a rosé for people that loves the classical rosé. No,
right?
Fruit,
no, I agree.
Sweet. No, it's not that.
Yeah, it's the opposite. It's for people who don't like rosé.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's not. It's very special. But
and this 18, I think, is one of the year more fruity. After 18 months, for me, I'm surprised has more fruit than the other vintage. Yeah, but has
but
always
so creamy also.
See, has always
and
this
salty,
salty like this salty of Mediterranean is here. It has a lot of white too. It's Grenache, Macabeo is white, Carignan. I think the first vintage a little bit Tempranillo also here,
yes,
a little bit.
Yeah, and there's actually different types of Grenache as well. Is that right? I think
yes.
white, gray, and red.
White, gray, and red. Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's drinking very well. I agree. The palate is very creamy, and it does have some good texture to it that you wouldn't expect from a rosé. Lots of good minerality. There are certainly some fruit to balance it out, but just very harmonious and drinking well right now. But certainly does seem like it would age as well.
Fantastic.
This is the biggest part is in calcare soil, argil calcare soil. No? This is argil is big part.
Excellent. Well, we still have 2 more wines to get to. Should we shift to the Nelin?
Yes.
Yeah. Which is, I understand, it's been around for a while. There weren't so many white wines in Priorat when you first came out with this, were there? It was mostly red.
It's not. It's true that the I think it's 5% of the population is white, but now more and more the winery made white and a very good success. The people sell very very nice these few bottles. Yes. And I think I'm very excited. I love to make white. I think the white in Prioriat have a lot of personality. It's nothing similar to the north of Europe. It's very Mediterranean, a lot of alcohol. The seed alcohol is near to 15 alcohol. This vintage was difficult to finish sugar, a long fermentation because too much alcohol in the wine or have a lot of alcohol in the wine, and to finish was very difficult. But this idea to a very okay, I'm here. We are from the south. Is wine from the south? Sure, it's clear. Big structure, no? Full body. But the good thing is the pH is very low, and this like the rosé, no? Also this salty and bitter. Plus, okay, it's alcoholic, but not really alcoholic. Alcohol is here, but it's not very alcoholic, no? And that's the idea. And the good thing of the wine of the south, especially the Grenache, is the oxidation. Always will have a nice oxidation. You taste that 10 years, sometimes it's quite old, but you taste 20 years, 30 years, and its oxidation is always nice. Always have creams, no, and full body. And if you like the oxidation, I love the oxidation. Always is in nice oxidation. And it's the Grenache.
I agree. This is very nice. It's my first time trying a white Priorat, but this one is, it's very impressive. It reminds me a little bit of some of the Southern Rhone white wines.
Yes.
Like from Chateauneuf, du Pape.
Yes, exactly. For me, it's I be inspired for that. No, for me, when I start to make the white, for me it was great. No, the like, wow. Rayas White or Beaucastel or Chave. Why I plant Marsanne and Roussanne?
I agree.
I have a little bit now Marsanne and Roussanne because now I plant more and more indigenous grape. Now I discovered in the last 5 years, 10 years, a lot of indigenous grape. We are more than 8 different indigenous grape. Very interesting. And now I take out the Viognier, Pinot, all is out. And more this indigenous grape like Charello, wonderful, Pansal, Charello, Trepat White, Picopoy, Escañabellas, Macabeo. All this is now here. The biggest part is Grenache White. This Grenache White is 65%.
Okay. And Charello and Macabeo, those are both some of the grapes that are used in Cava.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah, yes. And those are in the Nelin as well.
Yes, but you imagine the Macabeo are like it's normally made a lot of production, but in Prioriat is wonderful. You need the very big rosy plants because in Prioriat it's so dry. You have the bunches is quite normal, and this Macabeo is very very concentrated and very nice Macabeo. Macabeo is wonderful for aging. Tondonia is Viura is Macabeo, and Tondonia White is probably the white more famous in Spain for aging 30, 40, 50 years. That's Macabeo. No? Young Macabeo is normally difficult to find something attractive, no? But for aging, it's the perfect grape. No, it's very reductive, and this is the second grape in Nelin.
Okay, and this one is very age worthy as well. Is that right?
Yes, I made 1 year in Foudre, and after 8 months in steel tank. Normally I use the skin contact as Macabeo, always, a month like this. The Grenache, less because it's difficult, it's very oxidative. Normally direct press in the Grenache for a few hours, depending on the years. And all is blending always together to ferment slowly. Normally 3 months, the good vintage, 6 months, the normal vintage. And sometimes like this vintage, 16 months.
Right.
This I don't control. This the season of the wine.
Yeah. Now this one does have very, very impressive minerality, and that's probably
That's idea.
the dominant characteristic in both on the nose and then also on the palate as well.
The idea of is this minerality. This for me is very important, no? And the balance, if it's possible, but more important, the minerality and the personality is sure the one for it, and not for everybody. Also, it's not the one for everybody. Made a few bottles. The idea in the future is my brother and me. We plan more and more white. The idea, my dream is made the same product from the white of the red.
Oh, really?
For me, yes, and the same price.
even for Clos Mogador.
Yes, this idea. I love white.
Yeah. Currently, I think it's about 30,000 bottles for the red and about 7,500 for the white.
Yes, in that moment is 30,000 bottles of red and the good vintage, and the white is 8-10. But in the next vintage, I have 15. I think it would in 2 or 3 years. Well, if I don't mildew, but I plan 4 hectares more of indigenous grape, and probably I have 15,000 bottles. Half. 30, 15. For now is that. But the idea is to arrive at the same production in 10 years, probably. Okay,
great. And certainly I could imagine this pairing very well with a lot of foods as well. I understand it's very
much easy to pair in. The white is you have a lot of possibilities. No, this big white, many possibilities. No? One is oxidate, then one is very old, cheesy. No, one is vegetables, quite complicated. But one is in that moment, you can many possibilities. You have vegetables, meats, white meats, a lot of possibilities. Huh? Fish, sure.
Well, should we move on and talk about the Clos Mogador red?
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, the Clos Mogador red wine is the one that you've been most famous for, and we showed it a little bit earlier. Here's the bottle. This is the 2017 vintage. You see a little bit of the back label here. Could you talk a little bit about the blend and the components that go into the blend?
Yes, it's Grenache, like a Grenache 55% Grenache, and the Carignan between 20 and 25 in the year. Syrah, maximum, the good vintage was 12, 15, and the Cabernet is 5 to 10, it depends. But that vintage, I lost a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon because it was very dry and it has less Cabernet and more Grenache. That's nice, but nice is less tannins. It's quite sweet, very sweet tannins. No? The year is quite easy. No? This very long fermentation, like a one part, like I remember 30% of the wine was more than a year to finish sugar. That's where, and they created the wine, the food. I put this big part in concrete, no oak, to control this fermentation. And the one is I think the oak is not, well, it has oak, but it's not very oaky, not big structure. The tannin is quite round, no? This typical 17, no? This hot sensation, very round. The problem is to have the balance, no? The 2-hour freshness. This is the big problem in this vintage to find that. What I use the foudre and concrete, big size, and a few barrels. Normally I have more barrels, but I think the barriques is more for the years more fresh, more acidity. The years like these, like a 17, 11, was this vintage really extremely hot. I think the big volumes is very interesting to keep fresh sensations. This is not objective, it's subjective, but it's my opinion. And I have these possibilities. I think the different tools is very interesting to have different tools to aging. It's never is one better than the other. It depends if you want and the year to read the year. Sometimes I read the year good or not. Sometimes my wife has her opinion and made better one than me. This is very to feel. But I learned that of the concrete from my wife. And I remember the first people made a great wine like a Clos. I remember Clos Martin in 2009 was only in concrete. In Prioriat was that, and was the best score in Barker. And it was wow. But it was quite nice idea. What is very hot, no, to keep fresh, no, because if you put the hot vintage in the new oak, we are more hot and more structure. No, you have structure plus more structure. It's like a bomb, a big bomb. No,
right? Yeah.
If you put in the big size and concrete, the wine is like a little bit less, but it's fresher. No, and it's why not? No, it's a good idea.
Yeah, you can see it's still very, very dark and purple in the glass, but on the nose. And for this wine, I decanted it for 2 hours this morning, and then I poured it maybe 30 minutes before we went live. And it's still, right now, very, very open. The tannins are still present, but they're not too grippy. It's actually fairly well balanced and drinking much more friendly than I would expect at this stage. I think it just needed some air. I tried a little bit first thing, and it was very, very tight, but it's definitely opened up nicely after a couple hours of air.
Many people think about the Mogador quite very big wine. It's big wine because it's Prioriat, but when I put yeast, this is before 2006. The fermentation was very strong, and also a lot of pushing down. No? Now
the punching down, which is more aggressive.
Yeah, exactly. Now very slow fermentation, pushing down every 3-4 days. We have the same idea of long maturation, but this is not a big problem. If you are very, very long, it's not much structure. You have more structure, it's like 20 days, like 25. If you are 40, 50, you have less tannins. That's no problem. But that's Mogador typically always. But the big difference, if you compare to now, is that this inertia of fermentation, like you put yeast and then pushing down. I remember I sleep in the winery to push the 3 or 4 times a day. And that's ferment another, and now not. No? And also a little bit, I don't crush the grapes in the beginning. No, in the beginning, I don't have the machine to. And I use the stamps, but not a lot. Not only Grenache, like a stamp is like a 30% stamps. It's not the big part. No, but I also there's a difference if you compare to 15 years ago, no, or 10 years ago. Well,
so you do 30% whole cluster on the Grenache typically?
Yes. And after, but it's in the beginning, after a crash, and
right.
the stamp is here for the end.
Okay, which is also something they do in Southern Rhone. They use a little bit of
but it's impossible to find. If you find, I don't like. For me, it's okay if you don't find. No, this freshness, but I don't want to find that. For me, these aromas is nice, but in Clos Mogador, it's too bad. The people drink too early. Always, the wine in general.
Oh, for sure, yeah. No, I agree.
I don't want people drink that because like this. Fruity aromas. No, this is the same of the rosé. The fruit is okay, but if you spend 100 euros, it's not for the fruit. Spend 10 or 15. It's not a little bit is my opinion. And why the whole oranges is okay. In Dido, use more. Dido, some more spice. But always, when it's 100% that, for me, it's okay, but it's too simple. A little bit. If you wait in bottle, sometimes it's wonderful. But if you drink in moment when you feel too much these whole bunches or carbonic, you lose something. No, you lose the terroir behind. Sometimes the terroir is here, but it's difficult to find. No, it's like when you remember 100% New York or 200% New York. It's difficult to find behind. Sure, the terroir is here, but if you are very good tasting, okay, but it's not easy. No, I think now today this idea of to make a very easy wine and fruity and seductive is okay, but in that region, in that very extremely inexpensive place, the more important is the minerality, for me is what's the better process to have the minerality the faster possible. If in 2 years you don't have the minerality, for me it is the best. Or if in 1 year, normally you need always sometimes to have minerality in the wines. But for me, that's the obsession, to be mineral. I don't know always the way. Probably I made many mistakes. I never know what's the best. But I'm sure it's too much something. It's difficult to find minerality. Too much oak, too much fruity, too much grape stamps, no? Too much Brettanomyces.
Right.
This is it's difficult to find minerality. For me, the minerality is easiest to find if you are the very good balance and also time in cellar, times to aging, or time in bottle. The bottle is the best, but people don't wait, and that's the problem.
Right.
And,
I agree. And so what would
the
you
wine too? This is my fault. I sell too early also.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's very expensive to hold them back yourself and to sell them.
Sure,
later, so.
That's the big problem.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. So what do you think is the ideal drinking window for Clos Mogador? Would you save it 5 years, 10 years?
It's depends of the vintage. Yeah? Probably this vintage in 5 years is okay. Other vintage is 96 for me is wonderful vintage, but that's too young. That is a little bit big and the city is higher. I think this is 10 years minimum. It's dependent of the vintage, but for me, in general, Prioriat, if you wait 7 years, white
7 years is perfect.
it's sure we are a good bottle. No? Probably some bottle is more, but for me, 7 years is when I drink something of the Prioriat, this 7, 10 better, but 7 is okay. More, I like very old, no? But not everybody likes that. No? More, I think more and more the young people, less. I think it's important to know. It's very good to taste all wines, but because it's difficult to find, no. But 10 years for me, Prioriat is wonderful. 10 years.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I love wine with age on it, and so I'm excited to try some of these with about 10 years or more, because that's kind of when I would like to try it. I think, and certainly it would age really well. It's got lots of acidity as well. I know you talked about the freshness and minerality, and that's certainly there. But I also get some decent acidity in this wine, along with a lot of
We are very good acidity. I remember in the beginning, like in 19, the acidity is very down, and now the acidity is much better. I don't know, it's the climate, we pick late, or the viticulture of my brother, but I have the acidity is very nice. I remember in the beginning we acidified. Now, never. We have 15 degrees alcohol, but we have 6 and 6.5 in acidity. It's huge acidity. Always concentrate. And very good and very low pH. That's nice.
Yeah, lots of dark fruit, and this is an excellent wine. And you mentioned the price point, and it is about $100, €100, but it's certainly one of the top wines in Spain, and it compares very, very favorably to a lot of wines in the United States I've had that are 2 to 3 times that amount. So I think at that price point, it still will compare extremely favorably with any wine that you could possibly put it next to, especially with the Grenache base. Very, very impressive.
Thank you.